The sign at the edge of the block read Blackwood Heights scheduled for demolition. The letters were half peeled. The fence around the property had a gap wide enough for a grown man to slip through. Most of the windows on the 12 floors above were dark. A few, scattered like missing teeth, still held a dim orange glow behind torn curtains, the last tenants who had nowhere else to go. Tristan Vale stepped out of the black sedan at 9 o'clock sharp, closed the door behind him, and told the driver to leave. The driver hesitated. "Boss, you sure? Alone? Go." The car pulled away into the Brooklyn night. Tristan watched the red taillights disappear around the corner, then adjusted the collar of his long black coat and walked toward the building. He came alone because Marcus Doyle had insisted. An informant who talks to no one but you. No guards, no names. 10 minutes, and he gives us Kane's man inside. Marcus had said it with that same half-smile he always used when the job was delicate. Tristan had trusted that smile for nearly a decade. He stepped through the broken lobby doors. The air inside smelled of damp concrete and old paint. A flickering fluorescent tube hung from 2 wires in the ceiling. The elevator was taped shut. A pile of junk mail had been swept into one corner and forgotten there for months. Tristan was not afraid. Fear was something other men carried. At 37, he had walked into worse rooms than this, and walked out of all of them. Beneath the coat, a Glock sat against his ribs. In his pocket, a folded blade. Around him, the invisible armor of a name that no one in 5 boroughs spoke without lowering their voice. He was 3 steps from the stairwell when a small hand grabbed the hem of his coat and pulled, hard. He spun. His right hand was already moving toward the pistol before his eyes found the threat. There was no threat. There was a child, a little girl, no taller than his belt buckle, stood in the shadow of a rusted mailbox unit. Her jacket was 2 sizes too big. Her jeans were torn at the knee, not by fashion but by use. Dirt smudged one cheek. Her hair was pulled back with a rubber band that had once been red. But her eyes, pale blue, wide open, unblinking, were not the eyes of a child who had stumbled into the wrong lobby by mistake. They were the eyes of someone who had been waiting for him. She put a finger to her lips. "Stay quiet," she whispered. "Follow me. Don't let them see you." Tristan stared at her. He almost laughed. Almost. Instead, he reached down to pry her fingers off his coat. "Kid, you've got the wrong mister. Doyle isn't coming alone." His hand stopped. She did not step back. She did not flinch from the size of him. She only tightened her grip on the fabric and spoke faster, lower, like every word cost her something. "There are 4 of them, on the 7th floor. 2 by the stairs, 2 in the apartment. They've been up there since 8. They're waiting for you." The lobby went very still around Tristan Vale. Nobody in this city, nobody on this earth knew about tonight, except Marcus Doyle. Not Dom, not Bella, not the driver. Marcus had arranged it himself, from his own phone, standing in Tristan's own kitchen. And yet this child, this barefoot, dirty-faced, 8-year-old stranger, knew the floor number, knew the head count, knew the name. Tristan looked down at her again, and this time he saw what he had missed the first time. She wasn't scared of the 4 men upstairs. She was scared of how long it was taking him to believe her. "Please," she whispered. And Tristan Vale, who had never once in his adult life let a stranger lead him anywhere, took one slow step back from the stairwell and followed the little girl into the dark. She moved before he did. The girl slipped along the wall of the lobby with her shoulder brushing the paint, and Tristan, after one breath of disbelief, followed. Her small sneakers made no sound on the tile. His leather soles sounded like gunshots to his own ears. He adjusted his weight to the outer edge of each foot the way he had been taught 20 years ago, and even then she was quieter than he was. At the corner of the hallway, she stopped. Tristan stopped too. She pointed up. Not at anything obvious, just up. He looked. A smoke detector. Round, white, innocent. He would have walked under it 1,000 times in a building like this without a second thought. But the girl Tristan was already calling her the girl in his head, because she had not yet offered a name, tilted her chin until he followed the angle of her look, and he saw the tiny black dot in the plastic housing. A pinhole lens. The kind a man paid $800 for and installed when he did not want anyone to know he was watching. She waited until he nodded. Then she slid beneath it, flat against the wall, and motioned for him to do the same. A grown man in a tailored coat does not slide gracefully beneath anything. Tristan bent at the knees, hating every inch of it, and passed under the lens with his back scraping old paint. The next camera was hidden inside an electrical outlet at ankle height. She stepped over it without looking. The one after that was tucked into the frame of a fire extinguisher cabinet. She knew it was there before she reached it. She did not count them. She did not hesitate at any of them. She moved through the hallway the way a deer moves through a forest it was born in. This is not a child exploring a building, Tristan thought. This is a child surviving one. At the end of the corridor, where a red-lettered sign above a steel door read "Exit sealed by order of the city," the girl knelt. Her fingers found the bottom corner of the wall paneling and she pulled. A rectangle of plywood, the size of a large book, came loose in her hand. Behind it was a gap just wide enough for a small body, or a grown man on his knees. She went through first. He followed, his shoulders scraping both sides, his coat catching once on a bent nail that left a long tear along the lining. He did not stop to look at the damage. On the other side, darkness, concrete, the smell of rust and mildew. A service stairwell, unlit. Forgotten by the blueprints the demolition crew had probably been given. He caught her wrist gently in the dark. "Who are you?" His voice came out lower than a whisper. "How do you know Doyle's name?" She did not answer. She only lifted her free hand and laid one finger across her lips. Then she pointed upward, above them, through the concrete footsteps. Two men, heavy boots. One pair paced, the other pair stood still. Tristan closed his eyes and let his hearing do the work his eyes could not. A voice, muffled by the floor between them, drifted down. "He should have shown by now." Doyle said 9. "It's past." A second voice, lower, impatient. "Relax." Doyle said he'd come in alone. "That man doesn't know how to be late when the job smells like money." Tristan stopped breathing. He knew the first voice. He had heard that voice laugh at a wedding in Queens 6 months ago. He had paid that voice's rent for 3 years. He had trusted that voice to sit in a parked car outside his own mother's grave. Reyes. Reyes was upstairs. Reyes was waiting to kill him. The girl felt the change in him the way a stillness dropped over his shoulders like a dark coat settling into place, and she did not wait for him to recover. Her small hand found his, closed around 2 of his fingers, and pulled. Down. Not up. Down, toward the basement, where the dark got deeper and the air got colder and the men with the boots could not follow. The basement smelled of wet stone and something older, something rodent. A single bulb on a pull cord hung dead at the end of the corridor. The girl did not reach for it. She did not need light to find her way. She stopped at the last door on the left, a steel service door, dented near the handle, with the word boiler stenciled in faded yellow. She listened for a 3 count. Then she knocked. 2 taps. A pause. 3 taps. Something small stirred behind the door. The girl pushed it open. Inside was not a boiler room. It had been one, once. The old furnace had been dragged out, and the copper pipes had been stripped long before. What remained was a concrete box the size of a walk-in closet, lit by a single battery lantern, sitting on its side in the corner. The light was yellow and weak, and made every shadow lean. In that light, on a folded blanket against the far wall, sat a boy. He was small, smaller than he should have been for any age Tristan could guess. He had his sister's pale hair and his sister's blue eyes, except his were rimmed red from lack of sleep, and something else, the glassy brightness of a fever climbing. A wool blanket was wrapped around his shoulders and pulled up over his ears. His lips had a faint blue tint at the corners. His chest rose and fell too fast, and each breath came with a thin, dragging whistle. He saw Tristan. He did not scream. He did not even flinch. His fingers only tightened around something small and black in his fist. The girl knelt beside him first, smoothed the hair off his forehead, and turned to Tristan. When she spoke, her voice was different from the voice that had pulled him through the hallways. Softer, younger. "This is Eli. He's my brother. He's 6. She paused. "He has asthma." Tristan did not move from the doorway. His eyes traveled the room the way they traveled every room, cataloging. A plastic grocery bag holding 2 heels of bread gone hard at the edges. 3 water bottles, one almost empty. A crumpled fast food wrapper. A rescue inhaler on the floor next to the lantern orange cap, blue body, the little counter on its side reading a single digit. 4 doses left, maybe 5. He crouched. Even in a crouch, he was taller than the boy sitting up. "How long?" he said quietly. "Have you 2 been hiding down here?" The girl looked at the floor. For the first time since she had grabbed his coat upstairs, she seemed unsure of her answer, as if saying it out loud would make it real. 5 days. Tristan closed his eyes for 1 second. 5 days of this air. 5 days of this cold. For a boy whose lungs were already a fight, when he opened his eyes again, Eli was holding the black thing out to him. A USB drive. Plain. Cheap. The kind sold in a 3-pack at a drugstore. The boy's small hand was shaking so hard the drive rattled against his own knuckles. Dad said, Eli whispered, and had to stop to pull a breath. Dad said only give it to the man named Vale. The air left the room. Tristan Vale had heard his own name spoken 1,000 ways. In boardrooms. In courtrooms he had never entered. In prayers on his behalf and curses on his head. Nobody outside the family spoke that name in the open. Nobody inside the family spoke it to children. There was exactly one man beyond the walls of the organization who had ever been trusted with the full shape of the name Vale, not boss, not Mr. V, but Vale, the way a man writes it on a document that will outlive him. Thomas Bennett, former accountant, quiet, precise, soft-spoken, a man who had balanced ledgers no honest auditor would ever see, a man who had walked out of the organization 18 months ago with a pension and a handshake, a man the newspapers had called a suicide 3 weeks ago, a bathtub, a razor, a closed case. Tristan reached out and took the drive from the boy's hand. His fingers, the fingers that had signed execution orders and never trembled, shook once around the plastic. He had not felt that tremor in 15 years. It came back now, in a concrete room under a condemned building, handed to him by a 6-year-old with blue lips. Tristan slid the drive into the inner pocket of his coat, the one closest to the gun. Then he lowered himself down onto the concrete floor so that he was sitting, not standing, not towering. A man his size did not sit on a basement floor. He did it anyway. He looked at the girl across the lantern light. What's your name? Nora. Her voice was smaller than it had been upstairs. Nora Bennett. Bennett. Of course it was Bennett. Nora. He kept his voice even. He did not soften it the way adults soften their voices for children. He knew she would hear the lie in that. He only took the edge off, the edge that made grown men reach for their wallets faster. I need you to tell me the truth now. All of it. Who are you really? She lowered her head. Her hands came together in her lap, and she squeezed her own fingers until the knuckles went white. Eli watched her from under the blanket. He already knew what she was about to say. Tristan saw it in the way the boy's eyes went wet and did not look away. I used to watch you, Nora said. The room got very quiet. Tristan did not move, did not blink. A stillness settled over him that was worse, he knew, than any shout. A child could not read that stillness, and that was good. He did not want her to. Keep going. She swallowed. Her small chest rose and fell like she was gathering something heavy. After Dad died, we didn't have anywhere. The landlord was going to put our things on the sidewalk. A man came to the motel where we were staying, 3 months ago. He was nice at first. He said his name was Mr. Doyle. He said he knew Dad from work. He said Eli's medicine was expensive and he could help us pay for it if I did errands for him. What kind of errands? Watching a man. Which man? A tall man. Her eyes came up then, quick and frightened, and went back down. He always wore a long black coat. He walked out of a tall building on 52nd Street at 8 in the morning. He drank coffee from a blue paper cup. He got into a black car with tinted windows. I had to write down the times, what he wore, who he talked to, where the car went, if I could follow on the train. Tristan's jaw set very hard. He said nothing. I didn't know it was you, Nora whispered. I didn't know the man had a name. Mr. Doyle just called him our... He said I was helping people. A muscle jumped at the corner of Tristan's eye. He did not let it reach the rest of his face. Then what? Last week. I was outside Mr. Doyle's office. I had come to get Eli's inhaler refill. The door wasn't closed all the way. He was on the phone. I heard him say her voice cracked. Came back, he said. When Vale walks into Blackwood, it ends there. Her shoulders started to shake. That was when I knew what the errands were really for. She lifted her face. Tears had cut clean tracks through the dirt on her cheeks. She was not sobbing. She was crying the way children cry when they have already learned that sobbing does not help. I didn't know you, mister. I still don't. But I know they killed my dad. Dad left me a note before he died. He told me not to trust Mr. Doyle. He said if anything happened to him, I had to find the tall man with the black coat and give him the drive. He said the tall man has rules. And they're looking for Eli too, because Eli was at the apartment the night they came for Dad. Eli saw them. Eli pulled the blanket higher over his mouth. The whistle in his breathing had gotten louder. Tristan looked at the little girl who had been his shadow for 3 months, and had, tonight, refused to become his executioner. Her eyes held his without flinching, scared, exhausted, honest. And for the first time in a very long time, a man who had stopped believing in the honesty of anyone older than 12 realized he was the one being given a second chance. Tristan reached into the opposite inner pocket of his coat and pulled out a thin, matte black device the size of a paperback book. It had no branding, no logo, no keyboard letters worn down by years of office use. It was built for him by a man in Zurich who made 3 of them a year and charged more for each one than most families earned in a decade. He set it on the concrete in front of him and powered it on. The screen woke up in a dull red glow that did not reach the boy in the blanket. "What is that?" Nora whispered. "A tool." He did not look up. "Stay quiet." He slid the USB into the port on the side. The machine read it, weighed it, decided it was not a trap, and opened it. 3 folders. Transactions, betrayers, insurance. Tristan stared at that last word for a moment. Insurance. Thomas Bennett had been a man of quiet humor. The children, Tristan understood at once, were not the insurance. The folder was. Thomas had left a record of everything so that whoever opened it would also find the reason to protect what he could no longer protect himself. He opened transactions first. The screen filled with rows, dates, amounts, routing codes, account numbers, hundreds of them. He scrolled. 2 years of Vale family movements, cash cleaned through restaurants, construction loans, import shipments, parking garages, a laundromat in Queens that existed only to lose money on paper. He knew every one of these by memory. He had signed off on every one of these. But at the end of each row, in a column he had never approved on any ledger any accountant had ever put in front of him, there was a second transfer. Small at first. 2% off a skim, 4 off a shipment, rounding errors, the sort of thing that disappears if a man is not looking for it. Then larger. 6, 9, 11. Every single one of those second transfers ended at the same destination. A numbered account. No name. Grand Cayman. Tristan scrolled to the bottom and read the running total. $47 million. $47 million of his own money, moved out of his own organization, under his own nose, across 24 months. His hand tightened on the edge of the device until the casing creaked. He forced the hand to relax. The children were watching him. Eli had gone very still. Nora's eyes had not left his face. He did not let his face show a thing. He closed the folder, opened betrayers. A text file, 6 names, a column beside each name for role, length of service, and last known point of contact. Reyes, Callahan, Ortega, 2 names he had promoted last year. A 5th he had personally stood up for when the old guard wanted him out. And at the top of the list, written in the same steady font as the others, as if it were no more than a line item, Marcus Doyle, Consigliere to Tristan Vale. 14 years of service. Tristan closed the folder without opening insurance. He would read that part later, alone, where the trembling of a hand would not matter. Beside the lantern, Eli coughed. It was not a child's cough. It was the wet, tearing sound of lungs that had been working too hard for too many days in air they should never have been breathing. The boy curled forward, pressed his forehead against his knees, and reached for the orange-capped inhaler with a hand that had almost nothing in it. Tristan watched him take the puff, watched the little counter click down to 3. The calculation finished itself inside his head in the time it took the boy to exhale. Home was not an option. His house on Long Island had Marcus Doyle's fingerprints on every door handle. His car was tracked. His driver answered to a schedule Marcus wrote. The safe houses listed in the ledger at the office were listed in the ledger at the office, which meant Marcus had seen them, which meant Kane had seen them, which meant every one of them was a grave, with the dirt already turned. Tristan pulled the USB from the device, slid it back into the inner pocket, against the folded blade, over the steady beat of a heart that had just been told it was living inside a cage someone else had built. Then he looked at the 2 children across the lantern, and made a different plan. Tristan's personal phone stayed in its pocket, powered off, untouched. Any signal it sent from this basement would put a pin on a map inside a server Marcus Doyle could access within 90 seconds. He reached instead into the lining of the coat, into a slit only his tailor knew about, and pulled out a flip phone the color of old coffee. It had been activated once, 2 years ago, and never used. The number was memorized by exactly 1 man alive. He opened it, dialed. 2 rings. This line. A voice rough as gravel. Dominic Russo did not say hello. Dom, listen. The silence on the other end changed shape immediately. Dom had been Tristan's father's consigliere before he had been Tristan's. 30 years inside, one family taught a man the difference between the boss using his regular voice and the boss using the voice he used when the floor had just come out from under him. I'm listening. Nobody is to know I'm alive. Nobody inside the family. Not Marcus, not Reyes, not the driver, not the night desk. Okay, I need an unmarked vehicle. I need a safe house that is not on any list the office has ever seen. I need Bella Conti, sober and here, inside the hour. You want her brought to you or you brought to her? Brought to me. Blackwood Heights, Brooklyn. Service entrance off Hoyt. Flash headlights twice at the fence line and wait. A beat. Tristan. Are you hit? I'm intact. 2 civilians with me. One is 6 and having trouble breathing. Bring an inhaler. Albuterol. Pediatric dose. Don't ask Morris yet, he's fine. I just don't want him on this call. Understood. 40 minutes. Dom. Yeah. You didn't ask why. I know why you called me on this line, boss. I don't need the rest yet. The line clicked dead. Tristan folded the phone and put it back. That, he thought, was the reason a man like Dominic Russo was still breathing at 55 in a business that rarely let a consigliere see 40. He asked the right questions and he didn't ask the wrong ones. He looked at Nora. 40 minutes. We can't stay in this room. Your brother needs air that isn't this air. She nodded once, already standing, already gathering Eli's blanket around his shoulders. There's someone upstairs. She has heat. She has a window that opens. Who? Mrs. Delaney. 4th floor. She's the only one left in the building besides us. Tristan lifted Eli. The boy weighed almost nothing. He weighed less than the coat Tristan was wearing. That realization did something inside Tristan's chest that he filed away and did not examine. They climbed 4 flights of the service stairwell. Nora led. Tristan came behind with the boy cradled against his shoulder, and he was grateful, on each landing, that Eli's labored breath was warm against his neck. At the 4th floor, Nora stopped at a door painted the same institutional beige as every other door on the hallway, except this one had a small ceramic angel glued to the knocker. She tapped, a particular rhythm. Long, short, short. The door opened on a chain, an eye, faded blue, behind thick bifocals. The chain came off. The door opened the rest of the way. An old woman in a long gray cardigan stood in the doorway. She looked at Nora. She looked at Eli. Then her gaze traveled slowly upward, across the long black coat, past the gun she could not see but almost certainly sensed, to the face of the man holding the boy. She did not gasp. She did not step back. You're the man in the photograph Thomas left me. Tristan stilled. Come inside, before the hallway hears us. Her apartment smelled of chamomile and old books. She closed the door, locked it, and walked, without a word, to a sideboard in the narrow living room. From behind a framed picture of a much younger woman in a nurse's uniform, she drew out a small envelope, no bigger than a playing card, sealed with a bead of wax. She pressed it into Tristan's free hand. He left this with me 3 months ago. He said a man would come for it, and I would know him when I saw him. He was right. Tristan slid a thumb beneath the wax, a single brass key, an engraved number, the initials of a private bank on Madison Avenue, a safety deposit box. He looked up at her. Mrs. Delaney, why did you help them? She did not hesitate. Because I was a nurse for 41 years. Because their mother died the night Eli was born, and I was the one who handed him to his father. Because I know, Mr. Vale, when a child actually needs protecting. They waited in Mrs. Delaney's kitchen because the kitchen had no windows that faced the street. She put a kettle on out of habit, not hospitality. Eli sipped warm water with honey from a chipped mug, and his breathing quieted by a single degree. Nora sat pressed against Tristan's side on a wooden chair, and at some point in those 40 minutes, her small hand had found his sleeve and closed around the cuff. She did not let go. At 10 minutes past 10, the burner phone in Tristan's lining buzzed once against his ribs. He did not need to open it. One buzz meant Dom was at the fence. Time. He stood. Nora stood with him, still holding the cuff. Mrs. Delaney rose from her chair more slowly. She did not offer to come. She did not ask where they were going. She simply laid a hand on Nora's hair, briefly, the way a woman lays a hand on something she is letting go of on purpose. You be good for him, she said. And you tell your brother Mrs. Delaney says to keep breathing. Nora nodded without speaking. At the door, the old woman looked up at Tristan one last time. You have a key now, Mr. Vale. There is more in that box than a man expects to find. Thomas was not a careless person. I know. Go. Tristan lifted Eli from the kitchen chair. The boy's cheek settled against his collarbone without resistance, the way something very tired settles, and for the second time in the same night, the weight that was not a weight did something to him he could not name. They did not use the main stairwell. Nora led them down through the same service route they had climbed, then deeper, past the basement door, into a sub-corridor Tristan had not known existed. A narrow brick tunnel ran beneath the block. It must have been a steam line once, shared with the building next door before the next door had been raised. The floor was gritty with old coal. The ceiling was low enough that Tristan had to stoop. Nora walked it as if she had lived here longer than she had lived anywhere else. She probably had. The tunnel ended at a rusted hatch. She pressed her shoulder to it. It did not give. Tristan shifted Eli to one arm and helped her shove. The hatch opened onto a service alley behind the property line, 2 blocks from the demolition fence, well out of the sight line of the 7th floor where 4 men were still, even now, waiting for a man who was not coming. An unmarked black SUV idled at the mouth of the alley. Its lights were off. As they stepped out, the driver's window came down a finger's width, Dom's face unsmiling. The back door opened from the inside. Bella Conti was already in the back seat. She had come in a dark coat over what looked like a silk blouse she had clearly not planned to leave the house in tonight. A leather case sat on her lap. Her eyes took in Tristan, took in the boy against his shoulder, took in the little girl with the dirt on her jeans, and she did not ask a single question. That, too, was why Tristan kept her. He bent and laid Eli across her knees. She received him the way a woman receives a child she has decided, in advance, to defend in court. "Westchester," Tristan said. "Not the house in Rye. The other one. The one with no paperwork. I know the one. Call Morris. Tell him it's asthma, moderate exacerbation, 5 days of bad air and poor sleep. Send the car to pick him up. Do not give him an address until he's inside it. Understood. Nobody else. Not the family. Not the office. Not Marcus Doyle." Bella's eyes lifted at that last name, held his for 1 full second. She nodded. Tristan turned to put Nora in beside her, and found Nora had not let go of his cuff. Her small fingers had gone white with the grip. "Where are you going?" Her voice had gotten smaller again. He knelt, down to her eye level, in the alley, in the cold, his knee in a puddle he would feel later. "I have to go back to the work I have to do, Nora. They'll kill you. They'll try." Her chin started to shake. He watched her fight it, and win. "Listen to me." He took her hand off his cuff and held it in his own. It was the first time in he could not remember how long that he had held anyone's hand gently. "I promise you something, and I do not make promises. Are you listening?" She nodded. "I will find you. I will find your brother. Nobody touches either of you again. Not ever." He had said it. He had said the word promise to another human being for the first time since he was a boy himself. And as the SUV's red taillights carried her and Eli away down the alley, Tristan Vale understood with a cold, clear weight in his chest that a man who has made such a promise can no longer die the way he had planned to. Dom drove him back himself. They did not speak in the car. There was nothing to say that could be said before Tristan had walked through his own front door as a man who had been where he had claimed to be. The story he built during that ride was simple, the way good lies are simple. He had gone to a bar in Red Hook instead of the meet. He had changed his mind about the informant 2 blocks out. He had sat alone at a back table, drunk 2 fingers of bourbon he did not finish, and come home irritated. He repeated the details to himself until they sounded older in his mouth than his real memory of the basement lantern. The gates of the Vale estate on Long Island opened at 11:42. Gravel under the tires, the porch light on, the whole house looking exactly the way it had looked at 7 in the evening when he had left it, except nothing in it was the same. He had grown up in this house. He had buried his father from this house. Every inch of the marble in the foyer had been chosen by a man who had trusted his nephew to grow up beside his own son like a second boy of his own. Tonight, walking up those same steps, Tristan understood that the house had been under occupation for years, and he had been the last to notice. He let the door close behind him without hurry. He set his keys in the silver dish the way he always did. Marcus Doyle was already coming down the hall. He was in shirt sleeves, no jacket. Tie loosened the careful uniform of a man who wanted to look worried on behalf of someone else. "Boss." Marcus stopped 2 steps from him. "Jesus. Where have you been? I've called you a dozen times. Our people at Blackwood said you never showed." "Our people." Tristan filed that away. Marcus had already been told. Which meant Reyes had already called. Which meant Reyes had been given this number to call, long before tonight. Tristan let a small, tired smile pull one corner of his mouth. It cost him something he would only notice later. Something came up. "I changed my mind. Call them back. I didn't like the neighborhood." "You didn't," Marcus broke off, laughed. A laugh that in any other week of Tristan's life would have sounded like relief. You could have told somebody. We had the whole 7th floor locked down for you. The informant. There's no informant, Marcus. It was a setup from the other side. I felt it 3 blocks out. I wasn't going to walk into somebody else's room. Marcus's face moved through exactly the expressions a loyal consigliere's face was supposed to move through. Concern, understanding, a flicker of pride at the boss's instincts. Tristan watched the performance the way a man watches a play he has already read. Smart, Marcus said. Goddamn. Smart. I'll pull them back right now. Good. And Marcus. Yeah, boss. I want the name of whoever arranged that informant on my desk by morning. He said it easily. A small, throwaway order, the kind a tired boss gives on his way upstairs. He watched Marcus's eyes for half a beat longer than was polite. Nothing crossed them. Nothing at all. Not a flicker. That, more than anything else, confirmed it. First thing, Marcus said. Tristan walked past him down the corridor, past the portraits of 3 generations of Vale men hanging along the hallway wall, past the framed black and white of his own father at 28, and into his study. He closed the door behind him and stood there with his back against it and did not turn on the lamp. In the dark, he looked at the wall of photographs. How many other times, he thought. How many other times has Marcus sat in the chair across from me and lied about a shipment, about a rival, about a man who needed to disappear? How many of my own soldiers are buried under somebody else's orders wearing my name like a dog tag? He did not let the rage come. Rage, he knew, burned hot and briefly. What he needed was colder. Later, downstairs, the cook served a late dinner Marcus had asked her to hold. Cassoulet. A bottle of Barolo from the cellar. Marcus told a story he had told before, about a priest in Bay Ridge and a stolen Cadillac, and at the punchline Tristan laughed, and the laugh came out sounding exactly the way it had sounded 2 years ago, when he had still believed the man telling the story. Across the table, Marcus poured them both another glass. In the quiet behind his smile, Tristan Vale began the list. Reyes, Callahan, Ortega, the 2 newer names from the folder, whoever had handled the Cayman paperwork, whoever had known the schedule of the driver, whoever had laid hands on the lock of the safe house in Rye, and at the top of the list, in ink that would not wash out the man refilling his glass, 4 in the morning, Bensonhurst, a corner restaurant called Rosario's that had been closed for 17 years and, on paper, still paid property tax to a company that paid property tax to another company that, at the very bottom of the stack, belonged to the Vale family. The sign above the door still said Pasta Fresca, since 1962. The windows were papered over with brown craft. The lock on the back door opened to only 3 keys in the world. Tristan arrived first. He brewed coffee in the old stovetop mocha the previous owner had left behind. The kitchen smelled of stale oil and very faint garlic, the ghost of 100,000 Sunday lunches. He had eaten in this room as a boy sitting on his father's knee. He did not think about that now. Dom came through the back at 4:12. Bella at 4:15, a different coat from the one she had been wearing in the alley. Her hair was pulled back. Her case was thicker. They sat at one of the 4 tables, still dressed in a checked cloth. Tristan slid the USB across the wood between them. He did not have to explain what it was. He had told Dom in 2 sentences in the car on the way back from the estate that night. Bella had already been briefed in a 3-minute call from a phone that no longer existed. Dom plugged the drive into Bella's laptop. Bella turned the screen so they could all see. She opened transactions. Scrolled. Her face did not move. She was a lawyer. Her face had been trained not to move. She opened betrayers. Dom read the list. He read it twice. The color left his face the second time. Jesus Christ. His voice came out hoarse. Reyes. Callahan. That's Ortega? Ortega was a pallbearer at your father's funeral. Tristan, Ortega carried your father, I know. Dom's finger hovered at the top of the screen. He did not say the name there. He did not have to. Marcus. I know, Dom. The old consigliere sat back in the chair and pressed the heels of both hands against his eyes. For a full minute he did not speak. When he took his hands down, his eyes were red, but not from tears. Dom Russo did not cry for traitors. He grieved them like a man grieves a son he had warned. Your father, Dom said finally, should have broken his brother's neck the year Marcus turned 9. I told him so. He laughed at me. Bella had been quiet. She spoke now, evenly, and the evenness was not coldness. It was discipline. Legally, the transactions folder is a weapon. 47 million in off-book movements, dated, routed, and traceable to 6 named individuals. one of whom is your consigliere. In a courtroom I could end Marcus Doyle in an afternoon. But, if it touches a courtroom, it touches the rest of you. Every corner of the organization that generated the money was skimmed off of. You hand this to a prosecutor, you hand yourself to one with it. There is no version of a public trial that Marcus walks away from alone. Tristan nodded once. He had already walked that calculation in the dark the night before. So we don't hand it to a prosecutor. We do not hand it to a prosecutor, Bella agreed. Dom looked up. Then what? Tristan laid his palms flat on the table. We let him keep believing it's working. Both of them went still. He thinks I didn't show at Blackwood because I got spooked. He thinks I'm rattled. He thinks I do not know about the Cayman account, the 6 names, or the drive. For the moment, every one of those things is true on his side of the table. We let it stay that way. Dom frowned. For how long? Long enough to find the outside hand. Bella's eyes sharpened. You don't think he acted alone? Marcus Doyle does not hide $47 million in an offshore account by himself. He does not have the network. He does not have the paper. Somebody gave him the account. Somebody is feeding him protection. Somebody stood to inherit the kingdom with him. Tristan turned his coffee cup a quarter turn on its saucer. I want that somebody at the table the same night Marcus is. Dom and Bella looked at each other. It was the kind of look 2 old colleagues exchange when one of them is about to name the monster they have both been pretending not to see. Dom said it. Victor Kane. Tristan did not react. Jersey, Dom went on. Kane family. 3 years now, every shipment we lose. Every precinct that suddenly remembers us. Every judge we used to be able to call, there's a Kane fingerprint on it once you look. I've thought it was pressure from outside. I was wrong. It was pressure from outside and a door held open from inside. Tristan lifted his cup, drank, set it down. Then this isn't betrayal, gentlemen. His voice was very quiet. This is a war. Dressed up in a family funeral suit, planted inside my own house, waiting for the moment I walk out a door with my back turned. Bella closed the laptop slowly. What do you need from us? Tristan's eyes did not leave the blank screen. Everything. Starting now. The safe house sat at the end of a private drive in Westchester County, half hidden by a stand of oaks that had dropped their leaves early that year. No mailbox. No address on the door. The deed belonged to a shell corporation that had been formed 9 years ago for exactly one purpose, and no one inside the Vale organization except Dom, Bella, and now Tristan himself had ever been told the name of it. Dr. Morris had come and gone by sunrise. He had left behind a nebulizer, a fresh prescription, written instructions in the neat block letters of a man who had grown up filling in hospital charts, and a quiet assurance to Bella that the boy had been pulled back from the edge before anything permanent had happened to the small lungs. Then he had been driven away without ever being told where he had been. Eli slept. He slept the way a child sleeps when a body has finally been told that the emergency is over and the breath can come without being fought for. Nora had not slept. She sat in an armchair pulled beside his bed, her knees tucked under her, her hand wrapped around his smaller hand on top of the quilt. She had refused the food Bella had set on the table twice. The third time, she had eaten half a slice of toast because Bella had said, quietly, that Eli would feel better if he woke up and saw that his sister had eaten. Nora had believed her. At 9:30 in the morning, a car came up the drive, the soft crunch of tires on gravel. Nora's head came up. Her free hand went to the small pocket of her jeans where she had nothing to defend herself with and knew it anyway. The door at the end of the hall opened. Footsteps she did not yet know well enough to recognize. A voice in the kitchen, Bella. Another voice, low, answering. Then the second voice came closer. The door of Eli's room pushed open without a knock, and Tristan Vale stepped inside. He had changed his clothes. The long black coat was gone. In its place, a dark gray sweater, a wool jacket folded over his arm. He looked, for the first time since she had met him, like a man who might live somewhere. Over his shoulder was a small backpack, navy blue, new. He set it on the end of Eli's bed and lowered himself onto one knee beside it, so that he was again not taller than the child in the chair. How did he do? He said softly. He slept, Nora answered. The doctor said his lungs are better. Good. Tristan opened the backpack. He did it slowly, the way a man opens something he wants her to see him open, not the way a man handles a package in a hurry. He took out, one at a time, a box of 12 new crayons, still sealed, a book of coloring pages with dinosaurs on the cover, a small stuffed rabbit with long ears and a patched-up foot, clearly chosen because it looked already loved, a hardcover chapter book with a silver spine, The Secret Garden, a gold sticker on the corner that said it was for readers 8 and up, and at the very bottom, a white paper box from a pharmacy. Inside, in a neat row, 12 identical orange and blue inhalers, an entire year of breath. Nora did not speak. Eli stirred, opened his eyes, saw Tristan kneeling beside the bed. He did not flinch this time. He looked at the rabbit with the patched foot. Then he looked up at the man holding it. The corner of Eli's mouth lifted, the first smile Tristan had seen on his face. It was not much. It was barely anything. It went all the way through him. He set the rabbit gently on the quilt inside the curve of the boy's arm. Eli pulled it close without a word, and closed his eyes again, the small smile still there. Tristan stood. Nora had not looked away from him the whole time. "Mister." He turned. "You're a bad man, aren't you?" She did not ask it cruelly. She asked it the way a child asks whether the sky is going to rain, wanting the truth because she already had to plan for it. Tristan was quiet for a long time. He did not sit down. He did not dress the answer. He did not lie to her. "I am not a good man, Nora. I have done things no good man does, but I know the difference between a person who deserves to live and a person who does not. And you and your brother deserve to live more than anyone I have met in a very long time." She studied his face. She took her time with it. Then, very quietly, she said, "Dad used to say almost the same thing about you. He said you had your own rules. He said the rules were the reason he could leave us for you." Tristan stopped breathing. Thomas Bennett had not been a careless accountant. Thomas Bennett had been a man who, knowing he was about to die, had looked at every human being he knew in the world, and chosen, out of all of them, the name of a Mafia boss to put at the bottom of his children's last chance. A man did not make that choice by accident. Tristan looked at the little girl in the armchair, and he understood, finally, the full shape of the trust that had been placed in his hands along with the USB in a basement the night before. He had not been randomly saved. He had been selected. By 3 that afternoon, Tristan was back behind the walnut desk in the Long Island estate, wearing a shirt that had been pressed that morning by a housekeeper who did not know that her employer had slept 4 hours in the last 36. He had called the meeting himself, by voice, on the house phone, to 6 captains. Short notice. No explanation. Come. That alone would have already set Marcus's teeth on edge. A boss who does not explain is a boss who has decided something. They arrived separately, between 4 and 4:15, parked on the gravel loop, and filed into the study one by one. Dom stood by the sideboard, unreadable, pouring nothing. Tristan sat behind the desk with his hands flat on the green leather blotter and his jacket buttoned, the way his father had taught him. A man who buttons his jacket for his own men is telling them this is not dinner. 6 faces. He took them in. Marcus Doyle, to his immediate right, as always, freshly shaved. Expression of a man slightly worried about a boss he cared for. Reyes, second on the right, the voice from the 7th floor of Blackwood, sitting the way a man sits when he has spent the night pretending to be somewhere he was not. Callahan, to the left, heavyset, rosy, the broad laugh of a man nobody suspects of being clever. 3rd name on the folders list. Then 3 others, Perrone, D'Amico, Vitali. 2 of them Tristan had, in his own heart, already cleared. The 3rd he was still waiting to read. Tristan let the silence sit on them for 1 extra beat. Then he spoke. "Something has come to me in the last 48 hours. I want to bring you in on it before it spreads." 6 sets of shoulders settled slightly. "Bring you in." The language of inclusion. The language a man uses when he trusts the room. 3 of them believed it immediately. 3 of them were too good at this not to put up a shield. An old accountant of ours. Bennett. Marcus's right hand was on the table, palm down, as was correct. Tristan did not look at the hand. He looked at the face. Some of you remember him. Quiet man. Did the books for us a long time before he stepped out. You remember he passed 3 weeks ago. Small nods around the table. Reyes, too quick. Callahan, too slow. Word reached me yesterday, Tristan continued, his voice easy, almost bored, that Bennett did not step out quite as cleanly as we were told. It appears he left something behind. A drive. Records. Our records. And it appears that drive may still be inside Blackwood Heights. He did not raise his voice. He did not lean forward. He let the sentence land on a flat green blotter, in a quiet room, with all the weight of a glass of water being set down. Around the table, nothing. And under the table, exactly where Tristan was now watching in his peripheral vision, without turning his head, Marcus Doyle's thumb tapped the surface of the wood 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. Once a year, at most, a man gets to see the true shape of another man he has known for a decade. Tristan had been 11 when he had first noticed his cousin's thumb do that in a church pew, the morning of a funeral, while Marcus lied to Tristan's mother about the whereabouts of a stolen communion cup. Tap, tap, tap. The rhythm of a boy who has been caught and is doing the arithmetic on getting out. 11 years old, 26 years ago. The thumb had not stopped believing the rhythm worked. Tristan did not allow his eyes to flick down, did not allow his face to know what he had seen. Tomorrow morning, he said, I want a team back inside that building. Top to bottom, every floor, every unit, every storage closet. I want that drive in my hand by noon. If it is already gone, I want to know who took it and where they went. Boss. Marcus's voice came in smooth as cream. We already sent 2 sweeps through there. It's condemned. There's nothing. Then sweep it a 3rd time. Marcus held his gaze a fraction too long. Nodded. Understood. Reyes, you run the detail. Yes, boss. Bring the drive to me personally. Not Marcus. Not Callahan. Me. In this room. By noon. Nobody in that room missed the shape of what he had just done. He had cut Marcus out of the chain of custody without naming him. Done gently, conversationally. A boss streamlining a sensitive job. A man not in the list would have felt nothing. 3 men at that table felt the ground shift half an inch beneath their feet and held their faces very still. Tristan stood. That was the meeting's end. They filed out. Marcus squeezed his shoulder on the way past, the easy squeeze of a cousin, and said, Get some sleep, Tris. You look wrecked. I will. The door closed. Tristan stood at the window and watched the line of cars crawl down the drive toward the gates. Dom stepped up beside him without a sound. Every call, Tristan said quietly, eyes on the receding taillights. Every number, every contact, every second of his next 24 hours. I do not care how you do it. Already in motion. Tristan nodded once. Then, only then, he allowed himself to think about a thumb tapping 3 times on a wooden table. The taillights of Marcus's car had not been at the end of the drive for 20 minutes before Bella's people were inside his signal. She did not use Vale hardware for it. She used a team of 3 she retained privately, out of an office above a bakery in Jackson Heights. People whose names did not appear on any payroll Tristan could be traced to. They had been waiting for the number since dawn. The moment Marcus's phone pinged a tower heading westbound on the Long Island Expressway, they began logging. The first call, Marcus made himself. Hands-free, from the car. A number that matched no contact in any database the Vale family held. No business line, no personal cell listed on any tax form or property deed in the tri-state area. A burner, activated 4 months earlier, used, since then, on average twice a week. Bella brought the recording to Rosario's at 3:17 in the morning. Tristan was already there. He had not gone home. He had sat in the closed restaurant for 6 hours, with a cup of coffee he had made and not touched, and the lights off, and one hand resting on the top of the old wooden table. Bella did not speak. She set her laptop down, turned it so the speakers faced him, and pressed play. A car engine at speed, the faint hiss of a highway through a closed window. Then Marcus's voice, calm as lake water. Vale says there's a drive. He says Bennett left it. A pause. A second voice answered. Older, gravelly. The voice of a man who smoked a long time ago and still let the damage stay in his throat for effect. Where does he think it is? Blackwood. He's sending a sweep team at dawn. And it is there? I don't know where it is. Marcus's voice did not crack. It went harder. He went into that building last night. He came out. Something is off. He knows something or he doesn't. I can't read him. I'm moving the schedule up. By how much? 3 days. A longer pause. The second voice again. Slower now, weighing it. If you move it up 3 days, you move it sloppy. Better sloppy than late. Fine. You get him clean. The way we agreed, no body, no story, and your 30% clears within the week. Offshore, same structure. Understood. Marcus. Yeah. If he walks out of whatever you do next, neither of us walks out of what comes after. Do you understand me? I understand you, Victor. The recording ended. Bella closed the laptop. She did not look at Tristan's face. She let the silence work. Tristan did not move. He did not get up. He did not curse. He did not put a fist through the wood of the table that had been in that restaurant since his grandfather's time. His hands remained where they had been for 6 hours. Palms down, the right one lying easy over the left. Play it again. She played it again. Again. She played it a 3rd time. When it ended the 3rd time, Tristan finally moved. He lifted his coffee. Sipped it. It was cold. He drank it anyway. 30%, he said softly. 30% of the Vale family. To Marcus. The rest to Victor Kane. Yes. He wasn't just going to kill me, Bella. He was going to sell me. Yes. Dom had come in at some point during the second playback. He stood now in the doorway between the dining room and the kitchen, one hand on the frame, the other at his side. He had heard the voice of Victor Kane in his life once, 30 years ago, across a hospital waiting room while Tristan's father fought pneumonia. He had never forgotten it. He's been waiting, Dom said. A long time. Tristan turned his head toward the old man. Dom, I need you to tell me something. Honestly, the way you used to tell my father. Anything, boss? Why does Marcus hate me this much? Dom exhaled. It was not a sigh. It was the letting out of a breath he had been holding for 20-odd years without ever putting it into words. Your grandfather had 2 sons, Tris. You know this. Your father, Michael, and his younger brother, Polly. Marcus is Polly's boy. I know my own family tree, Dom. Your grandfather chose Michael. He chose your father to sit at the head of this table, and he told Polly so, at a christening, in front of the priest and half the uncles. Polly never got over it. He drank himself into an early grave by the time Marcus was 9. And Marcus grew up on the same block as you. Watched you get driven to private school in the same car he got driven to the public one in, and the whole time his mother told him, every single night, that the chair you were going to sit in one day had been stolen from his father. Dom's voice roughened. He doesn't hate you, Tristan. He hates a decision his own grandfather made in 1960-something. You just happen to be the face that decision is wearing. Tristan sat very still. Then I'm not just taking down a traitor, am I? No, boss. You're closing a wound that was left open before you were born. Tristan set down the empty cup. His voice, when it came, was almost gentle. Good. Let's close it. Tristan slept 90 minutes in the back office of Rosario's on a leather couch that smelled of pipe smoke. He woke at 6:40, washed his face in the kitchen sink, and had Dom drive him up the Hutchinson River Parkway to Westchester before the morning traffic closed in. He did not tell Bella where he was going. He did not tell the house. He did not use the burner. He simply went. The safe house was quiet when he stepped through the front door. The nebulizer hummed softly somewhere down the hall. Bella's associate, a woman named Paulina, who had been a paramedic in Krakow before she had been anything else, sat reading at the kitchen table and rose without a word when she saw him. She pointed toward the sunroom. She did not need to say anything. Nora was sitting cross-legged on the rug, the new coloring book open in front of her, a green crayon in her hand. The stuffed rabbit with the patched foot sat against her knee, facing outward, like it had been assigned a job. She looked up when the sliding door opened. She did not smile. She was not ready for that yet, but her shoulders came down half an inch, and Tristan, who had learned to read shoulders before he had learned to read ledgers, felt that half inch as a welcome. How is he? Better. Nora glanced at the hallway. He ate oatmeal. He asked if you were coming back. I said I would. I told him that. Tristan sat down on the rug, not in a chair. He folded his long legs the way a man does when he has not sat on a floor in 20 years, and is determined not to show that it is hard. I need to ask you one more thing, Nora. Then you don't have to think about any of this for a long time. All right. She closed the coloring book and set the crayon on top of it. All right. When they hired you to watch me when Marcus Doyle came to the motel and made the offer, and while you were doing the errands, was Marcus the only man you ever met? Or did anyone else come along? Ever, she thought. She did not rush. She closed her eyes the way he had seen her close them at Blackwood, as if she were walking herself back through a hallway step by step. There was one other. Tell me. He only came once, at the start, to the diner on 4th Avenue, the one with the blue sign. Mr. Doyle brought him. He didn't talk much. He just looked at me, and then he gave Mr. Doyle an envelope under the table, and Mr. Doyle gave me the first week's money out of it. Her brow furrowed. I didn't like him. Describe him. She took her time. Tall? Taller than you, maybe? Older. His hair was gray on the sides, but still dark on top, like salt and pepper. He had, she paused, touched the side of her own neck, just below the ear, a tattoo, right here. Small. It was a snake, a little black snake, curled up like it was asleep. Tristan did not move. He did not blink for a long moment. The black coiled snake was not a tattoo Sergio Mancini had chosen. It was a tattoo Sergio Mancini had been given, by his own uncle, in a basement in Newark in the spring of 1984, the night Sergio had been made into the Kane family. Every capo Victor had promoted since then had been marked the same way, the same spot, the same ink. It was the closest thing Victor Kane had to a family crest. Sergio Mancini, Snake, Victor's right hand, the man who handled, personally, every piece of Victor's business that required plausible deniability and absolute loyalty at the same time. The man who had met a child in a Brooklyn diner and paid for her cooperation out of an envelope. That was not a deal Marcus Doyle had closed on his own. That was a deal Victor Kane had signed, through his own man, 3 months before the hit on Blackwood was supposed to take place. Tristan looked at the little girl in front of him and understood that she had just handed him, without knowing it, the thread that tied the New York side of the conspiracy to the New Jersey side of it in a single knot. A knot no courtroom would ever need to see, because the knot was enough for him. Nora. She looked up at him, uncertain now, reading the long silence. Did I do it right? Her voice had gone small again. Did I remember right? Tristan's hand came up, slowly, because it had been so long since he had done this, that his body did not know the choreography of it. He laid his palm on the crown of her head. His fingers were large against her hair. His touch was so light she would have had to concentrate to feel the weight of it. It was the first gentle gesture he had made toward a child in his entire adult life. You didn't just do it right, Nora. His voice was low, and for once unguarded. You just saved more lives than you will ever know. She looked up at him, and for the first time since a basement lantern had thrown yellow light across her dirty face, Nora Bennett smiled. A real smile. Small, quick, gone again, but real. That evening, the 3 of them gathered in the back office of Rosario's for the 3rd time in 2 days. Tristan had brought a map. He did not usually bring maps. He preferred to hold geography in his head. Tonight was different. Tonight everything had to be on paper so that no detail lived only inside one man's memory. He spread the map across the old check tablecloth. Brooklyn, the waterfront south of Red Hook, Pier 94, an abandoned commercial berth owned, through a chain of shells, by the Vale organization. It had not been operational in 6 years. Marcus knew the pier. Marcus had once approved its purchase. Marcus would believe in it. Tristan tapped the center of the pier with one finger. Here, 2 nights from now, 3 in the morning. Dom looked at the map, then at Tristan. What's 2 nights from now at 3 in the morning? It's where I tell Marcus I'm going to meet a senior man from Philadelphia who has offered me information on a leak inside our organization. The meeting is quiet. No lieutenants. I tell Marcus I'm taking only him, because I trust only him. Bella already saw it. Her eyes darkened. You're offering him the scene. I'm offering him the scene. Marcus will not do it himself. He will call Kane within the hour. Kane will send Sergio Mancini. Sergio will bring shooters. Marcus will stand beside them and take the credit. He will speak before he pulls the trigger. Men like Marcus always speak before they pull the trigger. It is the only piece of the moment he has been waiting 26 years to enjoy. Dom set both hands flat on the table. No, Tristan did not look up. Dom, no, Tristan, listen to me. You want to stand on a pier in the dark, alone, and let a man with a loaded weapon walk up on you. And you want to trust that whatever window we rig for Dom Russo and the FBI to come through opens at the right second. One step out of place. One shooter who fires before his cue. One gust of wind that carries a voice the wrong way, you are dead on a dock that belongs to your own family. And then what? Then what do I tell those 2 children in Westchester? The room went still. Bella did not speak. She had known Dom 12 years. She had not heard him raise his voice to Tristan once in that entire time. Tristan lifted his eyes to the old consigliere's face. I know, Dom. Then use the drive. We have $47 million of evidence. 6 names. Internal routing. We put Marcus in a room. We play him the offshore ledger. We hand him to our own people the way your father handled traitors. Nobody stands on a pier. Nobody dies tonight or any other night. And what about Victor Kane? Dom's mouth closed. Dom, if we handle Marcus internally, Kane walks. Kane goes home to New Jersey, sits down at his own dinner table, and waits 6 months. Then he finds another Marcus. Maybe a better one. Maybe a Reyes we haven't caught yet. Maybe someone we haven't even promoted. And 1 year from now, or 2, it is my funeral, and those 2 children are sitting in the front row of a church, and the man who signed the order is eating veal in Fort Lee. Tristan leaned forward across the map. If we only take Marcus, we close half a wound. Kane opens it again the next time he is bored. I do not want to spend the next 10 years of my life waiting for the next knock. I want both of them on the ground the same night. With video, with audio, with federal cuffs, with a chain of evidence even a senator's son could not get out of. The silence in the room held. Bella spoke first, quietly, like a woman laying a hand on a stove to check how hot it was. "There is one way to do this where you never stand on the pier alone." Both men looked at her. "Wire. Not an ordinary one. I have a contact at the Bureau. I have had him for 7 years. He is the only federal agent Tristan has ever passed information to, through me, and he has never burned us. He has been waiting for something exactly like this, a chance to put Victor Kane in a room with proof for longer than I have known him." "Agent Hollis," Tristan said. "Agent Hollis. He will bring surveillance. Audio. Long-lens video from the rooftop of the grain silo across the basin. A tactical team staged out of a warehouse 1 block east, close enough to reach the pier in under 40 seconds of a trigger phrase." 40 seconds. Dom's jaw worked. 40 seconds is a lifetime with a gun pointed at him. "Yes, Dom. It is." Tristan's voice was flat. "Absolute. I know what 40 seconds is. I have spent 40 seconds looking at men I was about to end. I have a better idea than most people what can be done in 40 seconds. I will give them a reason to spend those 40 seconds talking. Marcus will talk. Sergio will talk. Men with a bullet ready do not hurry, gentlemen. They savor." Dom closed his eyes. "God help us. We are not asking God, Dom. We are asking Hollis." Tristan looked down at the map one more time. 2 nights. Pier 94. 3 in the morning. "I will give each of you your part tonight, and then we will not speak of this again over any line, any room, any wall, until we are standing on it." Tristan drove up to Westchester alone. He told no one he was going. The burner phone stayed dark in his coat. The dashboard clock read 11:17 when he turned off the main road, and the first snow of the season had begun drifting down through the headlights in slow, uncertain flakes. The kind of snow that has not yet decided whether to stay. Paulina opened the door before he knocked. She did not seem surprised. She only stepped aside and said quietly, "The boy went down at 9. She's still up." "I know." He found Nora in the sunroom, not on the rug this time, but curled into the window seat with her knees to her chest. The coloring book was closed on the floor. The rabbit with the patched foot was tucked into the crook of her elbow. She was looking out at the snow. She heard him in the doorway before she saw him. She did not turn. "It's snowing," she said. "I see that." Eli has never seen snow from inside a warm house before, only from a window that had cardboard on it. Tristan crossed the room. He sat down on the other end of the window seat, leaving room between them not because he wanted distance, but because she had not asked him to close it. He had learned, in 3 days, to let her decide where the line was. Outside the glass, a single security light caught the flakes falling through the bare branches of the oaks. For a while, neither of them spoke. The snow fell. Somewhere in the house, the heater clicked on. "You're going somewhere tonight," Nora said. "Yes, somewhere where it might happen." He considered lying. He looked at her small profile against the dark window, at the way she had braided her own hair tonight because no one had been there to ask her if she wanted her hair braided, and he decided that he would not. Not to her. Not ever. Yes. She turned her head toward him then. Her eyes were not wet. They were very steady. She was 8 years old, and she was carrying the conversation the way an adult carries a full glass across a crowded room. "You might not come back. I might not." She nodded once. She did not cry. She simply took the information and did the small, quiet work of making room for it inside her. The silence that followed was not empty. It was the silence of 2 people who had, in 4 days, discovered that neither of them was very good at lying to the other and had stopped trying. Finally, Nora spoke again. Her voice was softer now, almost as if she were passing something fragile between them. "Dad used to say something. I never understood it when he was alive. I think I understand it tonight. Tell me." He said a good person isn't a person who never does wrong. A good person is the one who knows when to stop and fix it. Tristan did not speak for a long time. He had known the thief's arithmetic at 23. He had known the weight of a weapon in the small of a back at 25. He had learned the chemistry of fear by 30. In 14 years of command, he had been told many things by many people who wanted him to believe them. He had never, in all of it, heard a sentence that had stopped him as cleanly as the one a child had just said to him in a window seat, while the first snow of the year fell past the glass. He reached, slowly, inside his coat. From the inner pocket, next to the folded blade and the worn leather of his father's old money clip, he drew out a small silver pin. An old one. Not ceremonial. Not decorative. A simple oval, about the size of a quarter. with a crest engraved on its face that fewer than 30 people in the world could identify at a glance, the Vale family crest, the seal his grandfather had been given on the day he had been made, and his father after him, and, on the morning of his 18th birthday in a quiet dining room with 3 uncles watching, Tristan himself. He had worn it inside his coat every day for 19 years. He had not taken it off for a plane, a funeral, a surgery, or a woman. He held it out to her in his open palm. Nora. She looked at the pin, then up at his face. I want you to hold this for me tonight. Her fingers did not move yet. If I do not come back by sunrise, if Dom Russo comes through that door instead of me, I want you to give him this pin, and tell him I ask you to. He will know what it means. He will know what to do for you and your brother after that. He will keep the promise I made to you in the alley. She took it, with both hands, as if she already understood that what she was being asked to hold was not a piece of silver. It was the part of him that was hardest to put down. Her small fingers closed around it. I'll give it back to you in the morning, she said. Tristan looked at her for a long moment. Then he stood. He did not say goodbye. Neither of them spoke that word. He walked to the doorway of the sunroom. There, he stopped once and looked back at the little girl on the window seat, the patched rabbit, the silver pin in her fist, the snow still falling behind her. Then he went. Pier 94, 3 in the morning. The wind off the basin had a cold in it that cut through wool. A fog bank had rolled in from the harbor an hour before, thick enough to swallow the sodium lamps along the bulkhead and leave only smeared halos in the air above them. The water below the pier slapped quietly at the pilings, a slow, uneven rhythm. Tristan walked out along the concrete alone. He wore the long black coat again. He had put it on deliberately. A coat Marcus had seen 1,000 times. A coat Marcus would be comforted by, one last time, on the night he thought he was going to win. Beneath the coat, against his skin, a flat matte strip of polymer ran from the center of his chest to just above his hip. Hollis's people had installed it in the back of a van in an alley off Van Brunt at midnight. It recorded audio on 4 channels, transmitted on a 5th, and did not register on any scanner Victor Kane's men knew how to use. Tristan had been told it would keep working even in water. He had not asked what depth. He stopped at the center of the pier, hands loose at his sides, breath visible in the cold. He waited 30 seconds. Then out of the fog, at the far end of the concrete, he heard the doors of cars closing. 2, then a 3rd. Then the low crunch of shoes on gravel coming up the ramp. 5 shapes emerged. 4 behind, staggered. 1 in front. Marcus Doyle walked point. He was smiling before Tristan could see his face clearly. A full smile, no brakes on it. The smile he had not been allowed to wear in any room of Tristan's house for 26 years. The smile of a boy at a christening who had been told a chair was being stolen from his father. Behind him at his right shoulder, a taller man, gray at the sides, dark on top, a small black coil visible above the collar of a leather jacket. Sergio Mancini. 2 shooters flanked him. 2 more trailed, hands already inside their coats. Marcus stopped 5 paces short of Tristan, close enough to be heard in the fog. Far enough that if a gun came out, it would come out comfortable. Tristan. Marcus. I have been waiting, Marcus said, and his voice was soft, almost tender, for this exact minute. 15 years of my life. You know that? 15 years. I know. Do you? My father chose me over your father, Marcus. And then he chose me over you. 2 decisions. You have been rehearsing this night against both of them your entire adult life. He should have chosen me. He chose me because he knew the difference. The difference. You would have burned the family for a chair. I would have burned the chair for the family. He watched us both at that dinner table since you were 6 years old, Marcus. He knew. It was never close. Something ugly crossed Marcus's face then. For one unguarded second, the boy beneath the consigliere looked out, and the boy was furious, and the boy was small, and the boy had a gun. He reached inside his jacket and drew it. Sergio Mancini laughed. It was not a loud laugh. It was the soft, appreciative laugh of a craftsman watching another craftsman work. Nobody, he said easily. The voice Tristan had heard 3 nights earlier on Bella's recording. No story. That's the rule, Doyle. You remember the rule. I remember. Marcus raised the barrel. It came up slow. He wanted the moment. He had, as Tristan had predicted, spent 26 years earning the right to hurry, and he was damned if he was going to hurry now. Tristan let his eyes drop to his own wrist. A single glance at the face of the steel watch his father had left him. 2:59. 57 seconds. 56. 55. He lifted his gaze back to Marcus's. Last chance, Marcus. Put it down. Walk off this pier. I will let you live. You have my word. You will not keep the chair. You will not keep your name. But you will keep your breathing. Marcus's smile widened. You are in no position to offer me anything. Tristan's voice was very quiet. I know. 50 seconds. 48. I just wanted you to remember, later, that I offered. Marcus's thumb moved to the hammer. At 41 seconds, the fog lit up. 8 pairs of headlights came on in the same instant, from 8 different angles, ringing the pier like a dropped necklace of suns. High beams. Spotlights. A long-lens camera on the rooftop of the grain silo across the basin clicked once and began to record. From behind the southern row of cars, federal vehicles peeled forward. From the eastern warehouse ramp, Dom Russo stepped out of the lead SUV with 20 Vale soldiers at his back, weapons drawn, none of them for Tristan. From the northern bulkhead, Bella Conti alone, holding up a handheld camera with the calm of a woman who had been waiting her whole career for exactly this shot. And from the west, over a loudspeaker, a voice Tristan had only ever heard on an encrypted phone line, finally came into the open. Federal agents. Weapons down, hands where we can see them. Marcus Doyle did not lower the gun. He looked, for the first time, at Tristan Vale, and Tristan, through the fog, through the light, across the 5 short paces that separated his life from his cousin's hatred, smiled back at him for the first time that night, with nothing kind in it at all. The 4 Kane shooters made the mistake of their lives in the same heartbeat. All 4 drew. None of them aimed at the uniforms. They aimed at Tristan. The first 3 rounds cracked across the pier almost together. One of Sergio's men fired wide into the fog, missed Tristan by 2 feet, and took a federal round through the chest from the silo rooftop before he could correct. The second man got 1 shot off that struck concrete at Tristan's heel, and sent chips of it flying up into his pant leg. Dom's people returned fire from the east ramp, and the second shooter folded backward over the bulkhead rail into the water below. The third Kane man made it 1 full step toward cover before 2 agents from the northern bulkhead hit him with a single coordinated burst. He did not get up. Sergio Mancini, older and faster than any of them, did not fire. He tried to run. He made it 11 paces toward the fog before a rifle shot from the silo rooftop took him through the thigh and dropped him onto the cold concrete. And a second agent was on him inside 4 seconds, boot on his shoulder, weapon kicked away. It was over in perhaps 9 seconds, which left Marcus. Marcus Doyle had not moved during any of it. He had stood, gun still raised, still pointed at Tristan's chest, and his face had gone the color of wet paper. You. His voice shook. It was the first time in a decade Tristan had heard it shake. You set me up. You set me up. You brought the fucking bureau onto my pier. It is not your pier, Marcus. It never was. You brought them here. No. Tristan did not raise his voice. He did not step forward. He stayed exactly where he had been standing since the fog had first lit up, and his voice, when it came, was almost gentle. No, Marcus. I didn't set you up. You set yourself up. The night you took money from Victor Kane. The morning you walked past my father's portrait and kept walking. The afternoon you put a child on my block to count my coffee cups for an envelope. Every one of those was you. I only arranged the room where you would finally do it in front of a camera. Marcus's whole arm was shaking now. I am going to kill you anyway. I know. Marcus pulled. The sound that came next was not the sound of his gun. It was the sharp, flatter bark of Dom Russo's pistol from 40 feet to Tristan's left. Fired once, clean, at exactly the right height. Marcus's shoulder snapped backward. The gun went up into the air, spun once in the fog light, and clattered onto the concrete. Marcus followed it half a heartbeat later, hitting the pier on his side, clutching the ruined joint, not screaming yet, just making a low, stunned sound that might have been a word if any word had still been available to him. Dom walked forward with the pistol still raised. He did not lower it until 2 federal agents had Marcus cuffed, face down on the cold concrete, a knee between his shoulder blades. Only then did Dom thumb the safety and lower his arm. He looked at Tristan across the bleeding body of the cousin he had known since the cousin was a boy. Neither of them said anything. Bella Conti walked up the pier with her camera still running and a folder under her free arm. She handed the folder to Agent Hollis, who had just stepped out from behind the eastern van. $47 million of offshore trail. 6 named traders. 2 years of Marcus's handwriting in the margins. The audio recording from 4 nights earlier. The audio from tonight. Everything, she said. Time-stamped, corroborated, and notarized as of 1900 yesterday. Hollis took the folder without looking at it. He looked at Tristan instead. For one long measured beat the look of a man closing a loop that had been left open for longer than he cared to count, and nodded once. "We have warrants standing," he said. "We roll on Kane's estate inside the half hour. Route teams are already in Englewood Cliffs. He does not see this coming." "Good," Tristan said quietly. Victor Kane would be taken, as it turned out, at 3:34 in the morning at his kitchen table, in a robe, eating a slice of leftover pork chop from the refrigerator. He would not resist. He would not even stand up. He would look at the two agents in his doorway, set down the plate, and say, in the gravel voice Tristan had heard on Bella's recording, "Took you long enough." The $47 million in the Cayman account would be frozen by 5 in the morning New York time. A portion would be structured back into the Vale family's legitimate holdings through Bella's work, over the following weeks. Clean. The remainder, Tristan had already decided, would go somewhere else entirely. He was not ready yet to say where. The federal vans pulled Marcus and Sergio away into the fog at 4:06. Dom drove Tristan off the pier in the same unmarked SUV that had taken 2 children out of a Brooklyn alley 4 nights before. Neither man spoke. The snow had stopped somewhere around Queens. Tristan sat in the passenger seat and looked out at the dark Long Island Expressway and did not feel what he had expected to feel. He had won. His house was his again. The man who had waited 26 years to kill him was in federal custody with a shattered shoulder. The man who had paid for the killing was being dragged out of a kitchen in New Jersey in a bathrobe. And Tristan Vale felt heavy. Heavier than he had felt in 15 years. Because somewhere in Westchester, a little girl was sitting on a window seat with a silver pin in her fist, waiting for the sun, and the weight pressing down on him was not victory. It was the understanding finally that an 8-year-old child had walked into a lobby alone 4 nights ago and done what not one of the grown men around him had managed to do in half a decade. She had saved him, and he was going to spend the rest of his life repaying that. The sun came up over Westchester County at 6:41 in a pale, thin light that made the new snow look almost blue, where it lay untouched along the private drive. Dom pulled the SUV up to the safe house and stopped it short of the porch. He did not cut the engine right away. He sat with both hands on the wheel for a moment, and then he looked across the console at Tristan and said, in the low voice of a man who had driven the father of the man next to him home from more than one battlefield a very long time ago, "Take as long as you need, boss." "I'll wait." Tristan nodded once. He got out. The gravel crunched softly under his shoes. He did not feel the cold in his coat. He did not feel his hands. He did not feel the small burn along his calf where a concrete chip had cut through the fabric of his pant leg earlier and left a thin red line he had not noticed on the drive. Paulina opened the door before he reached it. She looked at his face, saw whatever was there to see, and simply stepped aside and did not speak. He went down the hall. The door to Nora's room stood open. The lamp on her nightstand was still on. It had been on all night, he understood. The way his mother used to leave a porch light on when he had gone out as a teenager and not yet come home. Nora was sitting in the middle of the bed, cross-legged, in the same clothes she had been wearing when he had left her on the window seat. She had not slept. Her eyes were red, rimmed in a way that went deeper than crying. The silver veil pin lay in the center of her open palm. Her fingers were curled loose around it. She had been holding it like that, he could tell, for hours. She did not hear him in the doorway. She was looking at the pin. He said her name, just once, very quietly. Nora. She lifted her head. For one long second her face did not change. She looked at him the way a person looks at something she cannot yet believe is standing in front of her, and she made him prove it. Eye by eye, shoulder by shoulder, the long black coat, the hand on the doorframe, the shape of him all the way through, real. Then her mouth came apart, and the sound that came out of her was not a scream. It was the sound a held breath makes when it finally gives up the fight of being held. She cried. Tristan had seen her through 4 days of silent, disciplined fear, and she had not cried once. He had watched her brother almost stop breathing in a boiler room, and she had not cried. He had asked her to tell him the worst thing she had ever done, and she had answered without crying. He had put a family crest in her hand at midnight and told her there was a chance he would not come back, and she had not cried. She cried now because he had. He crossed the room in 3 long strides. He went to his knees beside the bed, not slowly, not gracefully, just down, the way a man goes down who has finally been told the order can come off his shoulders. He opened his arms and she came into them before he had finished opening them, the small, warm weight of her hitting his chest, her thin arms around his neck, her face pressed into the hollow under his jaw, the silver pin still clutched between her fingers and now pressing, cool and certain, against his collarbone. He closed his arms around her and held on. Somewhere down the hall, a small door opened, bare feet on floorboards. A patter, quick and uneven, because a 6-year-old with half-healed lungs does not run smoothly. Eli appeared in the doorway in pajamas 2 sizes too big, his hair stuck up on one side. He took one look at the picture in front of him, his sister wrapped around the tall man in the black coat, both of them on the floor beside the bed, and he did not hesitate. He crossed the room and climbed into the circle of them without asking, the way a small creature climbs into the only warm place left on a cold morning, and Tristan felt the boy's weight settle against his other side, and the thin arms reach as far around as they would go. Tristan Vale had ended men's lives in rooms colder than this one, without feeling anything move inside him. He had not cried at his father's funeral. He had not cried at his mother's. He had not cried when a priest in Queens had told him, at 19, that the girl he had thought he was going to marry had died on a kitchen floor of a heart nobody had known was damaged. He cried now, silently at first, then not silently. His shoulders shook once and then did not stop, and the 2 children only held tighter. He did not try to stop the crying. He did not try to speak, for a while, at all. When he finally could, he pressed his mouth against the top of Nora's head and whispered, into her hair, against the weight of a silver pin that had been held all night by an 8-year-old's small, steady hand. I came back, like I promised. 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, the Vale organization was scoured down to the floorboards. 3 of the 6 names from Thomas Bennett's folder were handed to federal prosecutors through Bella's channel, wrapped inside the Marcus Doyle indictment, their paper trails sealed tight enough that not one of them could turn state's witness without admitting to crimes no deal would cover. 2 more were handled internally, quietly and without funerals, in the older way Dom still knew how to arrange when the situation called for it. The 6th, the youngest, Perrone, was given a one-way ticket to a small city in Sicily and told he could spend the rest of his life pouring wine for tourists or he could not. The choice was his, but he would never again set foot in the 5 boroughs for as long as any Vale breathed on this side of the Atlantic. Dom Russo became underboss before the 2nd week was out. He did not want the title. He took it because Tristan asked him to take it, and because Tristan no longer had anyone else in the building old enough to remember which of the family's rules had mattered before Marcus had begun rewriting them. And on a Tuesday morning, in a quiet ceremony involving no one but a private notary and Bella Conti, Tristan Vale signed the papers to bring Nora and Eli Bennett home. Home, for the time being, was the estate on Long Island. Not because he was certain the estate was the right place for 2 children, he was not certain of that at all, but because it was the place he could guard, and because Mrs. Delaney, who arrived on a Thursday afternoon with a single suitcase and a framed photograph of a young nurse in a starched white uniform, would sleep in the room next to theirs from that day forward. The house did not look the same to him anymore. Rooms that had been staged for a catalog photograph were being colonized, quietly, by a child-sized pair of sneakers by the back door, a box of crayons on the coffee table, a stuffed rabbit with a patched foot falling off the edge of the leather sofa twice a day. The housekeeper, who had worked for the family for 11 years and had never been asked to keep anything childproof in any cabinet, found herself pricing safety latches online with an expression of mild bewilderment. On the 4th night after they moved in, Tristan sat Nora down in the library. Bella sat across from them with a folder open on the low table. Clean pages, official seals, nothing hidden in the fine print. Bella had drawn the paperwork herself. Every clause had been written for a child to understand if she were read the whole thing out loud, which Bella was about to do. Nora listened to all of it. She was 9 years old now. Her birthday had been on the 2nd of the 2 weeks, and no one had remembered until Mrs. Delaney had found the date on a copy of Eli's medical forms and made a cake that night from whatever had been in the pantry. Nora had cried over the cake more than she had cried on any other occasion in the house. When Bella finished reading, she set down the folder and looked at Nora, not at Tristan. "You don't have to say yes tonight. You can take a week. You can take a month." Nora looked at the folder. Then she looked at Tristan, and the look was old, older than her birthday had made her, older than the library they were sitting in. "But you're a..." She stopped. She tried again. "You're that kind of man. Are you sure you want to be our dad?" Tristan did not flinch. He did not promise her he would stop being what he was. He had stopped lying to her the night he had sat in a boiler room in a condemned building, and he was not going to start again now. "I am not a good man, Nora. I have told you that before, and I will not tell you anything different now. But I promise you this, and I have learned what my promises are worth these last 2 weeks. I will protect you and your brother with everything I have, and I will try to be better every day I am alive. Because you two are here. That is what I have. That is what I am offering." She was quiet for a long time. Then a small hand appeared at Tristan's elbow, not Nora's. Eli, who had slipped into the library without any of them noticing, stood at Tristan's side in his socks. His small fingers had wrapped around 2 of Tristan's. "Can you teach me to read?" It was so quiet in the library that Bella heard the boy's breath catch before the question was all the way out. "Dad said he was going to. He said on my birthday. But he didn't." Tristan's jaw worked. The tall man who had stood on a pier 3 weeks earlier and negotiated the terms of his own potential death looked down at a 6-year-old in pajama pants and nodded once, and the inside of his eyes burned so badly he had to blink twice before he could speak. "Yes," he said. "I will teach you. 6 months. 6 months from the night of the fog on Pier 94. The Vale estate on Long Island did not feel like the same house it had been. Eli had gained 9 pounds. He had started 2nd grade at a small private school in the next town, where 2 of the other parents were doctors and 1 was a state judge, and none of them asked questions about the quiet, tall man who came to parent-teacher night in a perfectly pressed coat and sat at the back. Eli's teacher wrote in his first report card that he was a bright boy, with an unusual curiosity about the shapes of letters. He was using the inhaler once a week now, sometimes less. He laughed at the dinner table. He laughed at his own jokes. "He had not laughed like that, Mrs." Delaney said softly to Tristan one evening. Since before his mother had died, Nora was 9. She had a room of her own, on the south side of the house, with windows that caught the afternoon light, and a desk she had asked for that was larger than any desk a 9-year-old needed. The desk had not stayed clean for one single day. It was buried, always, in pencils and watercolor tubes and drawing pads in 3 different sizes. Tristan had stopped asking the housekeeper to tidy it. The mess was hers. She had earned a mess. One evening in the first week of spring, Nora came down the stairs holding a drawing pad against her chest. She handed a single torn-out page to Tristan in the library, face down, and then went and sat on the arm of a chair across the room to watch him turn it over. He turned it over. A dark building, rendered in careful charcoal, rose against a gray sky. The lines of the lobby, the exact angle of a sealed fire exit door, the cramped rectangle of a tunnel beneath a basement floor. She had drawn them all from memory, and she had drawn them correctly, down to the bent nail that had torn the lining of his coat the night he had followed her through the plywood panel. At the foot of the building, walking out into the open air, 3 figures, a tall man in a long coat, a small boy with his hand in the man's, a girl on the man's other side, not quite looking back. Tristan held the drawing for a long time. The next morning he hung it in his private office, not across the room from the 3 generations of Vale men in their black frames, beside them, in the empty place he had left open along that wall his entire adult life, without quite knowing what he was leaving it open for. He was still the man he had been. He could not become somebody else at 37. He did not try to. The Vale family still had soldiers and territory, and a name that mattered in 5 boroughs, and Dom Russo still ran the day-to-day operations the way he had run them for 30 years. But the rules had changed. The bloodier lines of business had been closed. Quietly, in the weeks after Marcus Doyle's arraignment, the trades that had put bodies in rivers were handed off to nobody, simply ended. What remained was grayer and slower and kept the family in the restaurants, the real estate, the protection contracts that were, in their own strange legal way, close to legitimate. It was, Dom said one night over espresso, the closest thing to a retirement a man in their business ever got to take without actually retiring. $10 million of the recovered offshore money went nowhere inside the family at all. Bella set up the trust herself. A small office in Brooklyn, 2 blocks from where a building called Blackwood Heights had finally been reduced to rubble in the month of March. A staff of 5. A waiting list already 80 families long. The name on the glass, in simple black letters, read, "The Bennett Foundation, a home for children of Brooklyn." The man whose name it bore had been a quiet accountant who had chosen his death and chosen his messenger. Tristan had not forgotten either choice. On an evening in late May, Tristan sat on the front steps of the estate, with a cup of coffee gone cold in his hand. Eli was in the yard chasing a ball across the grass with a boy from the neighbor's house. Nora sat beside him on the step, close enough that her shoulder was against his sleeve. She watched her brother for a while. Then she said, without turning her head, "Dad." Tristan did not move. It was the first time. He had waited 6 months for it and had stopped waiting for it 2 months ago, which was perhaps why it had come now. Yes, why did you listen to me that night? You didn't know me. I was just a kid. Why did you let me lead you away from the stairs? He thought about it a long time. Because in the world I live in, Nora in the world I built, and the world that was built around me, 99 people out of 100 are lying at any given moment. You learn to hear it. After a while, you stop expecting anything else. And that night, in that lobby, you were the only person who spoke to me who was telling the truth. I could hear it in the first 4 words out of your mouth. I have not heard anyone speak to me like that since I was younger than you are now. She was quiet. Eli scored a goal against an invisible keeper and shouted. Tristan put his arm around her shoulders. Sometimes the most powerful empires in the world are not brought down by bombs or by armies. Sometimes they are saved quietly, in a dim lobby on a cold night, by the small hand of a child who is brave enough to say, "Stay quiet. Follow me." Dear viewer, if this story moved you, even a little, please do not let it end in silence. This story reminds us of a few simple truths worth carrying into our own lives. It reminds us that courage has no age, that honesty, especially from the small and the powerless, is one of the rarest things in this world, and one of the most precious. It reminds us that the people we trust most can sometimes be the ones closest to the knife, and that the strangers we dismiss at first glance can sometimes be the ones who save our lives. It reminds us that no one is ever too far gone to choose, on a single evening, to do something better with the time they have left. And it reminds us that being a parent is not about blood. It is about who shows up, who stays, and who keeps their promises. We would love to know how this story touched you. Have you ever had a moment in your own life when a small voice, a small warning, a small instinct changed everything for you? Have you ever trusted a stranger at exactly the right moment and been grateful for it years later? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one, and every story you share helps this community grow into something kinder than the world outside of it. If you enjoyed this video, please take a moment to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. Turning on the notification bell means you will never miss a new story. We upload emotional, heartwarming, and unforgettable stories every single day, told with care and meant to stay with you long after the screen goes dark. Thank you for spending this time with us. Wishing you and your loved ones strong health, peaceful days, a heart full of joy, and a life surrounded by people who tell you the truth. Until our next story, take care of yourself, take care of the people around you, and goodbye for now. We will see you again very soon.